This is a message to all my supporters of this podcast. I'm introducing a new supporters program. You can contribute a small amount as a one-off payment to show your love for this podcast. Thank you in advance for all your contributions. I just wanted to let you know before we start the podcast that I am doing an online podcast course, how to be able to create, get your guests, scale it and monetize it. So please do go to abmpodcastcourse.co.uk and go into the contact us bit. I'm looking for new people to be able to be a podcast creator and really to be able to develop their skills and knowledge into a podcast. So as I said, go to abmpodcastcourse.co.uk and sign up. Thanks.
This is the Absolute Business Mindset podcast, created and hosted by Mark Hayward. This podcast will interview entrepreneurs, business owners, and people in their careers. We will delve into their journey to success, key life milestones, and go deep into their area of expertise. This podcast will inspire and educate you with great guests. Get ready to learn from other people's successes and failures. Today we have Dan Kent-Smith, who is a former LinkedIn employee and now a founder of a LinkedIn consultancy business. Hi, Dan. How are you today?
Yeah, really good. Really good. Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me. So we're going to go back to the origin story, which you went to Chatham Grammar School in Kent. So talk me through some of your upbringing, why you went to that school, the challenges that you had maybe at the school.
Yeah, so, dear, this is going to take me back a little bit. So maybe not all of your guests are going to be familiar with a grammar school setup, but this is a selective school where you need to pass an exam when you're around 10 years old. If you pass that exam, you can go to a grammar school as opposed to a comprehensive. So, I passed it, and I was, the funny thing is I was one of the top pupils at my infant school, my primary school.
Right. And
then I went to a grammar school, and I was far from the top. I was so far from the top, it was ridiculous. And it was an all-boys school as well. I can't really tell the difference, is it an all-boys school or a mixed school? What's best for my own children? Right. I don't really know. My experience in a boys' school was that, it was a boisterous place. It really was. But I loved it. We played rugby. That was our main sport.
Yeah.
Cricket. We had a teacher who, in the winter, he said, God gave you hands to hold a rugby ball. And in the summer, he said, God gave you hands to hold a cricket bat. So that's kind of what it was like, really. And it was brilliant. In fact, my friends now, some 20 odd years after I left that school, are actually still some of my best friends. So it kind of shows what kind of place it was that you built lifelong friends there.
That's amazing. And then you did a degree at Bournemouth University in creative advertising. So why did you choose creative advertising? It's very specific. That's what I mean.
It is. It was only the only course in the country that was based around creativity as well as the business side of advertising. So it merged the two. To get into this course, and I can't remember the exact figures, but I think it was 2 A's and a B or an A and 2 B's. Right. And I wasn't going to be getting those kind of grades, I'll be honest, back then. And I didn't know what to do. And it was a friend of my dad's who said, well, I'll tell you what, here's some advice. Take any course down there, anything at all, down at Bournemouth. Just get down there, and then someone will, I guarantee it, they'll drop out of that course that you want, right. And you can pop up and say, I'm here. I would like to make the switch because they want bums on seats.
Yeah.
And I thought, God, that's a risk. That's a really big risk. But I've always kind of put myself as someone who's open to opportunity. And so I went for it. I took a course called Information Management Systems. I've no idea what that's about even now. And I went down to Bournemouth University and I met a few people. I started doing a bit of networking, met a few people, met people on the course. And after 6 weeks, someone didn't like it. they dropped out. I was straight in there talking to the lecturers, saying, look, I'm right here. And I had to go through an interview process. Now, this course was actually the second most sought after course in the entire country. Over 3,000 people went for 30 places. So it was highly in demand. Yeah. And I managed to get in through the back door. So the principles of this course, it stood me in good stead throughout my entire career, because it was all about how you convey a story for this. I mean, this is for brands, but really you can apply this to anything. How do you convey a story? How do you convey the benefit to someone? If you can get the benefit across and get an emotional attachment, you've got a much better chance of connecting with someone, of selling something, of whatever it is. You're going to do better if you connect on that emotional level. And that's a lot of what the course really focused on.
Yeah. So one of the questions I've got later on, but I'm going to ask it now. In this whole area that you've had your career in, would you say that it's more of an art form or a science?
Oh, it's a real mix. It's an absolute mix. Yep. And I'll tell you why, because I guess my brain is very mixed in terms of the left brain, right brain functions. I'm a highly creative visual person. I studied to be an art director, but actually I focus a hell of a lot on the analytics. But I can see a lot of creativity in the numbers. You don't have to have something static. You can actually be very creative with the numbers. You can pull patterns from them as well. It's how you transfer that into something meaningful. So actually, yeah, it's very much, it's such a mix of art and science. You need the science backing to really understand what it is you're trying to do. Yeah. The art is the craft of that. It's really how you turn it into something meaningful. That's where the art comes in.
Okay, fantastic. So you did your degree. You then joined Research International as a summer temp.
I did.
And then you moved to senior research executive. So that was branding. That was advertising. So just talk me through that first job. You've come out of university. You've got your degree, and you go in as a summer temp, which is perfect, like a really good entry into a good organisation. So what did you do there, and how was it related to the course that you did?
So the course I did, actually, it was highly pressurised towards the end. I mean, I'm sure most courses are, but towards the end, it was really highly pressurised. And so once I'd finished the degree, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought, I'm not going to go into advertising in a pure advertising sense. I was really not sure. But then I knew someone who was working for Research International, and she said, can you just come along and help us over the summer period? And again, I was like, okay, I hadn't thought about this. I never really considered market research, but all right, let's go for it. So I joined, and I helped out for that for a few months. And then they said, would you like to join the grad scheme? We think you're great. We'd like you to join it. Right. So I joined the grad scheme. This was a crazy place to work. Things, I don't know how much I can divulge. Things happened in this place that would not be allowed in today's day and age.
Come on, you got to tell me a couple of them.
The culture there was, and I'm sure a lot of companies were the same at the time, but at the Christmas parties, you would have best looking male, best looking female.
Wow.
No, it goes a lot worse than that, an awful lot worse.
Yeah.
Do you really want me to? Right, you'd have... So, all right, I'll tell you this. I'll use me as an example. 1 year while I was there, I did win Rear of the Year. So there we are. So yeah, I can't believe I'm divulging this stuff. But so there was this kind of thing, this kind of mentality that went on. There was we had one Christmas party where everyone was given some fake money, and you had to bet people with this money over the course of the evening, and whoever had the most money by the end then was a winner, and they got some kind of prize. But the way people were trying to get money and getting people to do things, it just escalated into absolute chaos. There were people disappearing off into corners and things like this. And then some people rolled into work the next day. Some people didn't even bother. And it didn't really seem to matter at the time, but it was, I wouldn't change it for the world. It was an amazing start to a career.
It sounds like sort of anti the sort of PC brigade that we've now got in the current lifestyle.
It really was. It really was. And for the most part, the culture back then was, as far as I am aware, people enjoyed it. They loved it. That would that would not wash in today's day and age, and nor should it really, you know. But at the time, it was just a very fun place to be. And I mean, work-wise, I worked across. We'll switch it into the work slightly. So I did a lot of ad tracking. I did pre-testing. I actually became at one point an alcohol specialist. So I would go around the country.
You worked for alcohol companies,
yes,
rather than you were drinking every day.
I mean, it's probably a mix of the two, really. I mean, but I would go around the countries doing hall tests, and so let's say Smirnoff were coming out with new variants, Guinness were coming out with new products, Bash, whoever else. We had a lot of these clients, Bacardi from the Diageo group. They would all be creating these new products, and they need to test them to see if they're working, are they viable. So we would go and we would literally hire people off the streets to come into a pub, into a hall, to test various drinks.
Right.
And the first drink I worked on was the very first Alco Pop, which was Reef.
Right. Yeah. I remember Reef.
Yeah.
Reef at university. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. You see. Yeah. All those kind of things, and lots of different Bacardi products, and Caffrey's was another one. Yeah. So we would pay people to come in and have a session.
Going through my sort of university years, Caffrey's and Alco Pops and things.
Yeah, there's a lot of these flopped. You know, they didn't even get launched because we would test these in a number of different ways. We would have people, they would have a pint of whatever it was we were asking them to drink. They'd fill in a questionnaire. They'd have another pint, questionnaire, another pint, questionnaire. So they'd have between 4 and 6 pints, and then the next day we'd also do a questionnaire to gauge the effects of the next morning. And they're still getting paid 25 quid to just per person. So get a bunch of mates, come in the pub, we'll give you all this beer for free, and then you just fill in some questions. Great. So I do a lot of that kind of stuff as well.
So what universities were you involved, or like how did you get the people off the street? Was it literally pulling people off the street?
So what we would do, we would have a team that would go out. You don't see this anymore, really. People with clipboards who are on the street, and they would go, "Can I just have 2 minutes of time? I'm doing some research," and they would check to say, you know, your demographic, your age, and all this kind of stuff, what you're interested in. Great. What we're doing is we're testing some beer. Are you around tonight? And can you bring 5 friends with you? We'll pay you £25 each. You can have 4 to 6 pints, and you just got to answer a few questions. And they would, more often than not, they jump at it.
And so research, sort of market research at that stage, though, how has it changed to where we currently are with market research? Because my exposure to market research is actually fairly limited. I've never done it. I've never done any of these sorts of tests or been involved in that. How has it changed over the years?
It's changed enormously. And again, with a lot of industries, everything's got to be quicker. It's got to be cheaper. People need more value from it. So back in those days, the principles are the same. It's about understanding a particular audience segment, whatever it might be, and getting meaning from it so you can act on it, something actionable. Back then it was quite paper heavy. You know, this was we would fax results through to a client using a fax machine. Those kind of things. The way it's moved on with everything being online, that's the biggest difference. Things have gone online, so you can do things much, much quicker. But you've also got a lot of tools out there now which can delve a little bit deeper into someone's subconscious as well. Yeah. So it's not just the written word that you're putting down. There's NLP that can fit into this as well. You can read between the lines and really understand what the meaning is behind what people are literally saying. There's a lot of visual techniques that people can use as well. But then to layer on that, you've now got the social listening side of things, which is huge. It's brilliant because this is the social listening side is unfiltered, so it's not preempted.
Social listening.
So what you can do, there's a number of companies out there who can actually tap into the way people are not reporting, the way people are acting on certain social media platforms, stuff they're saying about a given brand or a topic or whatever it might be. And you can scrape that data off and make sense of it. And so you're not pushing a question to someone that they need to react to. You're looking at this in a very unfiltered way and then saying, actually, this is how people feel about your brand. These are the actions you need to take. And you can change and modify your marketing approach off the back of it.
How accurate is that? How accurate is scrolling through social media to get sort of responses to brands?
Now that would depend on the audience. I mean, if your target audience was pensioners, let's say, they may not be as prolific online, and so there's going to be less data that you can pull, and that the data you do pull may not be representative of that wider audience. But when you're looking at a younger demographic, and you can make some assumptions that it is representative of a target audience, and then you can actually make some really strong recommendations off the back of it. You can't ever say it's 100% true, and you can't do that with any research. But
the interesting thing about what you've just said is there's assumptions that are made part of the analysis of social media. I think that's quite fascinating because, you can have indications that a demographic's going to drink this, eat this, go out to this place or whatever by where they're tagging their places. Mm-hmm. But you might find that someone only tags when they go out with a girlfriend, for example. They never tag anywhere else. So if you're scraping, like you said, information, if you're collecting information about me that only tags when I'm going to a lovely restaurant with my girlfriend, that's not necessarily a massive demographic, because when I go with my mates on a Friday, I never tag the pub I'm in. So do you see I can see there's sort of inconsistencies, and there's quite a lot of assumptions that are made as well.
No, that's true. But if you talk about this, and again, it all comes down to the objectives, what you're trying to achieve and what you're trying to do, because you can use this for crisis management. So you can have a brand. If we go back to the beer brands that we were talking about, if Catherine's was alive today, and you're looking online and you had all these people saying, I was drinking Catherine's last night and I've got this rotten headache in the morning, which is one of the side effects that we found, then actually you can start thinking, I wonder if this is a one-off, or can we look at this? It's not an isolated case. And because you can do this very quickly, very cheaply, and you can look at all the data that's online and say, there's a pattern forming here. This is something we need to look into in much more detail.
Right. Okay. Interesting. So you moved on, as I read on when I was reviewing your career, that you moved to the tech bubble, is how you described it. How was that, again, a sort of crazy time where money was being thrown around at these tech companies, some good, some drastically terrible as well? How was that from a creative side?
So actually, the reason I moved from Research International was because I wanted to be at the forefront of the tech space. I've always tried to position myself towards what the next thing is happening. So, and Research International didn't really have much of a presence in that space. So I went across the FramFab, which no one would have really heard of these days. But at the time, it's one of the world's biggest internet agencies. But it grew too quickly off the back of too few clients. And then because the internet bubble burst, the company imploded. And I was only there 3 weeks when they started making redundancies. But so it was a very strange place in that terms. My role was safe throughout the entire time, and I actually left on my own accord because the company was just going to go under completely. But whilst I was there, I learned some new skills, which is great because I'm always trying to pick something up new and different. And I started to learn about information architecture and wireframing for building websites. And I would sit between the engineers who were building the sites and the sales guys who were selling them, and making sure the functionality was fit for purpose, and how users as well, the other part, how they would actually interact with the site so that they can actually get to where they want to easy. So this is called user experience. And so I did learn a few things there, and it was a nice place to be, and the offices were great as well. But
so I actually did a user research course probably about 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay,
and it was part of the role that I was at, and so as you say, the balance between the user's experience and how that is fundamental to this area. So was the tech. So it seems to be a bit of a theme here that you like moving towards like tech, and you're interested in technology. As I say, we'll get to your current business at the moment. But so tech's always been an important component. What you've liked in your roles and your jobs and your career.
Completely, yeah, and even in my personal life. So I've got all hue light bulbs and Ring doorbells, and it drives my wife nuts. She'd say, like, why do we need 3 Echo Dots in the house? And do we really need the light bulbs to be... actually, they've all got names as well because it's easier. So you can say, Alexa, turn Freddie on, Freddie front room. It just, makes it all easier. And she's like, why do we need that? And I said, but why don't you need it? Come on, embrace it. So, but yeah, all of that area, absolutely love it.
Fantastic. So then you moved to the Guardian, which again is a really reputable. You're in the recruitment wing in workthing.com, but you work for some big companies. How was the sort of, I know it's recruitment, but in the sort of publishing area as well?
So this started off as it was just workthing.com, but then Guardian came in and bought them out. So it didn't start off, it wasn't always part of the Guardian, but it was the recruitment arm, and it was an online recruitment arm. So purely online. I looked after the market research side of things, the analytics. So I'd delve into the background analytics of the site, and I'd help the sales guys really build out a story to convince clients this is where you should be posting jobs, and this is where our audience comes in. This is the kind of people, their demographic, what they look like, and that's why you get your jobs in front of them. You've got a better success rate. Yeah. So that's what we used to do, and I'd work with the PR guys, marketing guys, the sales guys, and the exec leadership to make sure they had all the information from how the site was performing, plus also doing first hand primary research as well. So it was an interesting place to be. It was a nice place, but I got to a point where I was thinking, I've got some friends who've gone traveling and I haven't done it yet, and I'm getting on.
Question about your gap year, go on.
And I made the leap, and I spoke to a friend over a weekend, and he said, yeah, let's do it. Let's just pack everything in. We've got nothing holding us back. Let's do it. And on the Monday, I resigned. It was that quick. So a month's notice, that was it. And then boom, off traveling.
So where did you go?
So we followed, because at the time I was living in Dulwich with some friends, and there's two of these girls who had gone traveling, and they were in Thailand. So we, on their way back from traveling, so we started there, then we went down to Singapore. That was only for about a month across those, and then we spent 3 months traveling with some more friends in New Zealand, camper vans and all this kind of business, and then the bulk of the time was in Australia. Okay. So I lived out there and worked out there as well.
Yes, I see you worked there as well. What did you get from your gap year?
We'll be back after a quick break.
Hi, I'm Alex, the host of X Health Show. Meet the future of healthcare. Think X-Men, that's X Health. Actual superheroes behind programming living cells to cure cancer once and for all. Tech that detects preterm delivery in seconds, brain-computer interface, or apps that employ AI to match you, your disease, with the best treatment. X Health Show brings to you visionaries who push the boundaries of healthcare from Switzerland, the heart of Europe and the most innovative country in the world. Let me introduce you to their startups. Head to X Health Show, meet the future of healthcare. Happy to greet you there.
An even greater sense of adventure, really. Embracing different people, different cultures was amazing. Such an eye-opener, because before that I hadn't been out of Europe, so your typical kind of package holidays, those kind of things. And then suddenly this whole new world out there it was amazing. I would recommend it to anyone. It's such an eye-opener, and it's brilliant to meet so many different people on that journey as well. Even to the point where, and I was talking last week to an old friend who's now living in Australia. And one of the things I struggled with to start with when I was living in Melbourne would be, I'll be sitting on a tram and someone would come over and just sit next to me and say, all right, hi, how you doing? And I'd be like, hang on a minute. What are you after? What do you want from me?
Yeah.
And that was but that's the nature. They just come and talk to you because they're interested. And it honestly just changed my perspective on a lot of things. And then, I mean, you've got all the other things where you do activities. You're doing whitewater rafting. I managed to go to the Australian Grand Prix and the Australian Open and various things like that. I went to Ayers Rock or Uluru. Just saw some amazing places. And those days will live with me forever. I wrote a diary. I've never written a diary before in my life, but every single day on that journey, I actually wrote a good few pages. So it's good reading, even back now. Looking back on it now.
Excellent. All right, we're going to jump a few market research roles to where you got to LinkedIn.
Yeah.
You went in as a market researcher with ad efficiency. What's ad efficiency?
That's ad effectiveness.
Effectiveness, sorry.
Effectiveness. So ad effectiveness is really understanding how clients are spending on LinkedIn, on their advertising, and whether it's working for them or not. Yeah. Now, when I was I was looking after the UK to start with, and part of this role was actually setting the benchmarks, understanding how much does the client need to spend in order for me to then talk to them about how effective their campaigns are. Mm. So we set that benchmark, that bar at $250,000. You're spending over $250,000 in a single campaign, then potentially I could talk to you about how effective that is. And we'd run research and analytics behind it to see. And then we can help them and advise them on how to improve it, how to improve their creative. So we'd always say, we can get your ads in front of the right people and the right time, the right environment and all these things, but you're producing the creative. And if your campaign sucks, then chances are it's your creative and nothing else. So I would also, given my background of starting off as an art director, would help them on the creative to make sure it's fit for purpose. Mm. And if you really dumb this down to the very basic level, and I talk to a client, I say, what's your objective? And I say, I'm trying to raise awareness. I go, great, okay, show me the ads. Where's your logo? And they go, oh, yeah, I haven't put it on yet, I forgot. You're not going to get awareness if no one's going to know who it is. Might be a brilliant ad. So that's a basic level.
Right. Okay.
So we'll go through that, and then it expanded to EMEA and India as well.
Yeah. So just on that, so you moved to a more global role, so to EMEA and to India. So what your responsibilities obviously extended. What was it like working in a global team at that stage?
Yeah, it was. It's always tough because my remit then was from India, and my boss was in San Francisco. Right. So I'll be catching up with my boss constantly, who's plus 8 hours or minus 8 hours. Minus 8 hours, and India was 4.5 the other way. Yeah. So it was not always easy, but you just kind of get on and do it. Sometimes it's needed, but they were pretty flexible. It'd be a case of, look, if you've got to do a late night here, don't come in so early the next day, and the other way around. But you find ways to make it work. There'll be a lot of traveling that went with it as well. So I'd go out to India to see the teams. I'd go to Dubai as well, all around Europe, Dublin every couple of months, and Berlin, Rotterdam, Amsterdam, Paris, all over the place, plus the States as well. So a good couple of times a year, probably San Francisco. We would always do a big kickoff meeting. So all the people who are in the marketing department, marketing and sales departments, that would be probably about 5,000 of us would descend on places like Vegas for a weekend, hire out a hotel and a conference hall and talk about strategy for the year and all these kind of things. And so, they treated you really very well. But yeah, it was.
What year was that?
I joined there in 2012 and I was there for nearly 5 years.
So 2012, LinkedIn wasn't like now. LinkedIn is it's a powerhouse for business networking and business ads and things. But in 2012, it was still relatively small, wasn't it?
There was, now let me think. I'm going to say there were probably 250 million members globally when I joined. And there's 760 million now. Okay.
So it's still quite a substantial player, but nothing on the same scale of like Facebook.
No. Oh, no. But the dynamic has changed. It's really shifted. So when I joined, people still talked about it as more of a jobs board. Yeah. This place you can post jobs, find jobs, It's where I'll put my CV and That's just not the case anymore. There's at least 6 times more content than there are jobs these days. So it's really a content business hub.
Yeah,
that's the sweet spot for it.
Okay, take a step out of your career and businesses. Do you have a morning routine?
Do I have a morning routine? So, kind of.
Okay.
Kind of.
Go on. What?
So my morning routine. So because I take the kids to school, and so off the back of that, I'll always go for a longer walk round to just trying to get myself moving. Really, just normal stuff, not too far. I'll chalk up 10,000 steps or something. Yeah. Nothing too crazy. Back by 9. Always do that because, and I tell you, I found that when I started going out by myself solo, and I'm in my little office room in my 4 walls, if I didn't do that, if I didn't have that little bit of exercise in the morning, I really struggled mentally through the day, like focus and concentration, and just it must be the endorphins that release just by being outside for a bit, as opposed to that's it, wake up in the morning, come into your desk and you're done for the day. And it made a real difference. And so I stick to that, and I just, I do press ups. I play football. I was playing football on a Sunday, but that's not a routine. My wife keeps telling me I should be doing yoga in the morning because the back's seizing up, sitting at my desk, normal stuff. But really, that's it. Of a morning, it's sorting the kids out after a cup of tea. So if you're on a real routine, it's cup of tea first. Yeah. Number 1 on the list. Then it's kids up, get them ready, off to school. I take them to school, go for a longish walk round, and then back, and I'm onto it. And what I'll always try and do is clear my inbox first of all, clear anything, all my messages, emails in the first hour. So that's all clear.
Yeah.
Off the back of that, then I can start to focus on what is it I'm trying to achieve today. Yeah. And then I'll often book my own time in to say, right, there's a 2-hour window. I'm just going to concentrate on achieving what it is I want to achieve. Yeah. And then in the afternoon, I'll come back to whatever emails and messages have built up. So that's the kind of general routine.
I've talked quite a lot about sort of to-do lists, and I've got a to-do list on steroids is how I describe it, of how to structure your day. But I think it's really important. One of the techniques that I used in my corporate role, used now in my entrepreneur lifestyle is blocking out times to do tasks.
Yep.
Because this is always ringing, this is always buzzing, there's always an email popping in or whatever. And I talk about that being a really powerful tool because, again, it stops procrastination as well, because you're not just putting things off with other sort of technology. So I think it's a really good technique to use to block out time to do deep work. It's like Cal Newport said, you should do deep work in this sort of capacity. So I definitely.
The procrastination is an interesting one. I wrote a blog about this a while back because this would take us all the way back to my university degree. Right. Procrastination is a brilliant tool for a creative person. So what you do, you use it in a positive way. Right. You look at the problem and you absorb all the information you can. You just take it all on board, everything. Yeah. And then what you do, you park it, you move away from it, you go outside, you go and do something different, you leave it well alone, and gradually some creative thoughts will start to creep in. If you sit there and go, I've got to crack this, I've got to be creative, I've got to figure out the issue, it gets really hard, and it can start getting stress levels start increasing, and then it gets even harder. But if you use procrastination in that way, in that structured way, you go, I'm going to learn everything, and then I'm just going to come back to it at some point. I mean, of course, you may have deadlines, but come back to it at some point, then things will formulate, things will start to happen for you. And so that's where creative person can use it in a good way rather than the negative way that, we're all associate with it.
I would agree because so if I'm writing, if I was writing a really long email to a client, or if I was writing a report, or doing something that I was like deep work, is how I describe it. But actually that stepping away and doing something else or going to get a cup of tea, it actually gives you perspective because you zoom out. You're zoomed in very, very intensely on what you're doing. But actually that go and get a cup of tea, go for a walk around the block or whatever, and then come back to it does give perspective and give you a zooming out and then zoom back in again. I think it's a really important technique that people, as you say, people get so focused and I've got 5 hours to do it, 4 hours to do it, 3 hours to do it, and then you do it in the last half an hour. That's not the best way of being effective. But I would agree. I think that's a really good point, and my listeners should think about that actual ability to take a step away from something intense.
I'll just give you a quick example that, and this is another blog that I wrote about, actually teeing them up. This is great. But John Cleese, he wrote a script. So he wrote this script out and he was going to take it to, I think it was Chapman or Ida who was taking it to, and he lost it. He lost this entire script that he spent ages putting together, and he couldn't believe it. He was fuming. He didn't realise this for a couple of days, and he thought he was going to have to start all over again. So he started from scratch. He wrote out a brand new script, and then he found the original. Right. And when he compared the original to the new one was so much better than the first one that he put together. And he just did it from memory. So something had changed and formulated in his mind over that period to make it better second time round. So it can work.
Okay, great. So LinkedIn, working at LinkedIn for 5 years was kind of like a game changer for you in the sense of your sort of future careers, and we'll talk about next play in a minute. But I when I was doing some research, you were a founder of Data-Driven Storytelling.
Data-driven storytelling, yeah.
Driven storytelling, I can't read my own writing, which you described as the intersection of numbers and narrative, which I think is absolutely fascinating. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that business, and then did it wind down?
Not strictly speaking.
Okay, tell me about it then.
So, how much detail do I go with here? Back when I joined LinkedIn, they gave you shares in the company.
Right.
They can't do that now. Of course, Microsoft have bought them for $26.2 billion a few years ago, when $26.2 billion was a lot of money. But no, so they gave you money. They gave you shares in the company when you joined, but they only became yours after 4 years. So you couldn't really cash them in, let's say. Yeah. So what you found is that a number of people would do their 4-year tour, we called it, tour your duty at LinkedIn, and then they would set up by themselves and go it alone. And so I set up Data-Driven Storytelling, which is all about how you convey meaning from data, from numbers. And this can be for marketing people, could be for PR, could be for salespeople, whoever. It's how you really take that meaning from the data. Yeah. This is my first attempt at going solo. And what I found, this was a learning curve over this period of time. What I found is that I didn't enjoy my own company that much. I really struggled to know what my end vision was. Where was I trying to go with this? What was my mission? What was my vision? What's my goal, my North Star? Yeah. Really struggled with it. And because I had this great idea to start with, and I thought, that's enough. Great, I've got an idea. I'm going to quit. I'm going to go for it. And then when you really got into it and think, is this working? I don't know. And I didn't have anyone to turn to. I didn't know about networking groups and these kind of things. So I struggled with it. I mean, it was still relatively successful, actually. But mentally I was struggling with it. And I don't know if this is for me. And so I decided I wanted to go back into industry. Right. And this is... a lot of people find this interesting anyway, that I decided I wanted to go into PR. And I thought, right, who's the biggest company out there? It's Edelman. Edelman's the world's biggest PR company. Yeah. And I found there was a role going there that I thought, this is the role I want to get. So how am I going to get it? I'm going to run an advertising campaign on LinkedIn targeting Edelman, talking about me. Wow. So I ran a campaign. It didn't cost a great deal, but it worked. And it worked not just from a awareness building mechanism or anything like that. It worked from a storytelling point of view, because as soon as I got that recruiter on the phone and said, did you see the advert I ran? She was like, well, hang on a minute, what? You ran a campaign on LinkedIn, what? So it just started the ball rolling, and there was traction there. And actually, I got exactly the role that I aimed for to start, which was great. So LinkedIn still having an impact on me even then. I was utilising it in a big way. So yeah, that's when I stepped into Edelman Intelligence.
So just on that, so setting up your own business, you said mentally it was a challenge and it was tough. So just something when it comes up, I talk about it. So from a mental health point of view, were you depressed? Were you was it just a challenge being on your own? You said you didn't really like being on your own and stuff like that. How did it sort of materialize for you on mental health?
I don't. I'll be brutally honest with you. I don't know if I was depressed. I don't really know what that would be for me.
Okay.
If you had a list of the symptoms of depression, I probably ticked a number of them. But it's not like I was diagnosed, and I wasn't going to diagnose myself. But what I do know is that I lost interest in a lot of other things that I should have been interested in my life.
Right.
I was the only person in the house. So my wife's at work, the kids are at school. It's just me and the cat, not much company, sleeps all day. So I actually, I used to just have Spotify on because I just love listening to music. Couldn't even do that. I had to have the radio on, so there was another voice in the background occasionally.
Yeah.
And so all these things were kind of going through my head, but that was, I think, part of a manifestation of me not knowing what I wanted to do. So that kind of confusion of an end goal, together with actually being at home by myself, not having anyone to lean on really to ask or a support network to kind of go, is this the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Yeah. You add all that together and that became a struggle.
It sounds like you were in a way lonely. I know that sounds...
Yeah, you're probably right, yeah. I used to joke that, I'd talk to the cat and sometimes I think the cat was talking back.
And so you said it was a learning curve, and you learned a lot of things from that experience. What was the vision? Not having an end game. You've said this a couple of times. You didn't have an end game of what you wanted to achieve from that business. Do you think that was possibly your biggest downfall?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, a bit of naivety as well. So if someone like yourself, who is a business advisor, if you were around when I first set up my first company, then that could have been different. That could have been very different, because then I can bounce something off you and say, does this sound like something I should even be entertaining? Yeah. And you may just turn around to me and say, absolutely not. What on earth are you doing? But I might have known quicker. I might have failed quicker, let's say. Yeah. But I didn't have that, and I didn't know how to have that, and I didn't know how to necessarily go out and meet the right people to ask these questions to. They're all over there, wherever over there is. I don't even know. How do I go about finding someone in this world? Which is bonkers, coming from someone with a LinkedIn background as well.
Yeah,
it's completely insane, and I know, and I can hear it, and I know what it's like. But it was a learning curve, because I've always had this feeling that I wanted to set something up, do it yourself and set things up. But I had to also understand, you've got these three kind of pillars. You've got to understand, what is it you can do? What is it that other people want? Can you have fun doing it? If you can merge the three of those, then actually you could be onto something. And without jumping forward too much, I was actually talking to an ex-colleague of mine who she was a new mum. She was doing a bit of LinkedIn consulting, helping a few people here and there. And I said to her, well, I've been doing a little bit of this just because people have asked me. And maybe there's something in this. Maybe we should kind of join forces a little bit. And then, hang on a minute, there's another one that we used to work with who is also doing this. And before you know it, there's 9 of us who are out there doing the similar things. And now actually that's a support group. Yeah. So we can start bouncing ideas. We can start sharing clients. We can go in as a pair or 3 of us when there's a big pitch that needs to work on. And it all comes down to the fact that we really understand how people can get the most out of the LinkedIn platform because we work there. We've seen it from the inside. This is what we did for our biggest clients, spending millions. So it all kind of comes together in the end. But I don't think I'd be as good at what I'm doing now if I hadn't gone through that process to start with.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And just a not random question, but just on LinkedIn, why are LinkedIn ads so much more expensive than Facebook ads?
So the unofficial line that we used to say at LinkedIn is if you want to target people who flip burgers for a living, go to Facebook. If you want to target the next CEO, then you come to LinkedIn.
Right.
And it's a very arrogant positioning, but that's one of those things that we used to say.
That's amazing. Okay. So coaches, mentors, you said when you were at your first company, you didn't have a coach or mentor. After that experience, do you have coaches or mentors at the moment?
I do have a coach. He's very good. And we've got a bit of a system where I help him on LinkedIn. He helps me with business coaching side of things. Because also I'm one of the, because I've got this creative angle to my mind, I'm constantly got another idea and another idea and another idea. And he will rein me back in sometimes and just kind of go, right, refocus, think of the end goal, get back on track.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with you. So sometimes I need a little bit of that.
I think it's incredibly important. And I think possibly your business, the first business you had, I think was a good idea. I just don't think you had everything around you to make it actually successful. So I would agree with that. I'm going to skip over Edelman. I no doubt it was a great experience, but I want to talk about you then went to Strike Out again. You mentioned it. You got connections with people, ex-LinkedIn employees. So you set up Next Play, and you talk about building profiles, employee branding, lead generation, analytics. So just tell me about your business, what you do, who you work with.
Yep. So Next Play is a phrase that's actually used. It was used a lot by the former CEO of LinkedIn, and this was all about how you move on. Don't dwell on something too long, whether it's really good or really bad. Don't dwell in it too long. Move on. What's your next play? And this came from a basketball coach who he would say to his team, they've just done a brilliant slam dunk against you. Move on. Don't worry about that. Move on. Conversely, the flip side, you're playing brilliantly and you've just scored. Don't over celebrate it. Back in position because it's all about their playbook. So this is a phrase that's used a lot around LinkedIn. So one of the things that I do now is I help people be more productive and successful through the platform. So I stick to LinkedIn. I don't dabble with other social media sites. I use all that knowledge that I've built up over those 5 years. And the other guys in this alumni as well, who have got amazing skill sets, who are all slightly different as well.
Yeah.
And so it works together that way. Now, when I work with a client, I'll give you an example. Someone will say to me, Dan, I need some leads. And you go, great. Who doesn't? Right. What should we do next? And then we start with that as an end goal, but then we have to work backwards and think, right, how good's your network? How good are you connected to these people? What's your content look like? How does it work for you? Are you measuring it? Are you really looking at the measurement side of things? If you're not measuring it, you can't improve on it. And then to go back a step further is then, well, hang on a minute, you haven't got your shop window in order, because if you don't improve your profile, your company page and the basics, you're never going to move to steps 2, 3, 4. It's the equivalent of going to the high street and you go to a shop to buy a pair of shoes. You see them in the window, think they're the shoes that I want, but hang on, the window's cracked and there's paint peeling off all around the windowsill. But hang on a minute, the same pair of shoes are in the shop next door, same price, and that's all sparkly and clean. I think I'll go in that one. Now you've got the digital equivalent that someone else with your skill set is only a click away. Yeah. So you've got to position yourself in the right way to ensure that they spend the time to look at what you can offer, and you convey enough trust through your profile that they're willing to take it a step further, then you can start turning it into a lead driving tool. And that's what it comes down to. But then, so that's on one side of it. And then you've got things like LinkedIn ads, how you place ads, how you get the most from them. You've got lead generation, you've got employee advocacy, which is, I work with some companies that, small companies, and they say we've got 20 employees, but and I look at their content and say, you've only got 1 like on your content. What's going on? Do your employees not like you? Well, you know, if you can get them on side and get them evangelizing your content, they become like your salespeople. Yeah. And it helps retain talent. It helps get new talent, and it also helps you build clients because they're doing a lot of the awareness building for you. So there's those kind of things that come into play. So I work with people on a one-to-one level. I do workshops. I'm putting together courses. All sorts of things, really, but it's all based around getting the most out of LinkedIn and making it work for you.
Amazing. And do you think the sort of future for LinkedIn, like you've said, it was originally a job posting board and it's moved to a content, like you provide content for it. How do you sort of see the future, the next 2 to 5 years of LinkedIn now? So
I'm very wary of here's a new word for you, the Facebookification
okay.
of LinkedIn. So LinkedIn have just launched LinkedIn Stories. Mm-hmm. LinkedIn Stories has been around for a long time now with the likes of Insta and Facebook. With all of these things, it's an attention grabbing mechanism. This is why you get notifications and people talk to me and they say, I need to understand the algorithm. And I'll say, you don't need to understand the algorithm. You need to understand, how does LinkedIn make money? Because that's what the algorithm's built for. If you understand how they make money, you can think, how do you operate within the parameters of that? The way LinkedIn make money is through advertising. And they only get advertising if you're on the site and you're there. They don't get it if there's no members. So you need to be on there and you need to think about your content, which is going to be sticky enough, attractive enough that people will then look at that content. And then if they look at that content, then LinkedIn will look favorably on it and evangelize it a bit further, because then they get more eyes on it and they can do more advertising. Yeah. That's how it works. Where was I going with this? I've lost my train of thought completely.
Well, let me ask you another question.
Oh, sorry, the Facebookification of it. So the LinkedIn story side of things is an attention grabbing mechanism. It's short lived. So stories are they're only around for 24 hours. They don't have to be overly polished, but I'm wary of people using it in a personal setting rather than a professional setting. And we used to always say, don't mix your Friday night with your Monday morning. Yeah. The slight issue that we've got today is that with everything that's going on in the world, there's a blurring of those lines between your professional life and your personal life. Yeah. Everyone's at home working, which means you're doing Zoom calls and you're opening up your vulnerabilities. People can see around your room and where you're working, your environment, and suddenly that becomes a little more human. And your kids or your dog might suddenly come in the room, and that opens up another topic. But again, that's giving more of your personal self in a professional setting, where you may not have done that if you was in an office in a meeting room. Absolutely. So there's that slight blurring of the lines. So I am wary of how people are utilizing LinkedIn, putting more of their personal self into it, but some of it can't be helped. The future of it is, I think groups are going to come back in a big way. The new guy who's taken over from the former CEO, he took over in June, Ryan Roslansky, he's the former SVP of product, and being the SVP of product, he's going to have a lot of ideas, and he's talked about trying to bring groups back. They're putting money into group side, I think. Yeah. If you want to take this to its logical conclusion with LinkedIn and the Microsoft buyout, what you're going to start seeing probably is LinkedIn getting baked into the Microsoft systems and the universe of the ecosystem. So whenever you start typing an email to someone, their profile will pop up because you've got their address in there. That will pop up. It's coming through Outlook or whatever else. You'll get to see them first. If you've got a calendar invite, you're going to get to know this person before you go in and see them based on their profile. So this makes it even more important to get right. And then if you want to go even further, what I think may happen this is a stretch. But I did read this. This is a bit of a rumor, I guess, but I did read this, that Microsoft are toying with the idea of creating a business-only virtual assistant. So think of Alexa, but having it just for business. So it'll be tapped into possibly LinkedIn or something like that. You tap a button, set a meeting for here, send a meeting to them, it's all voice activated. That's possibly where it's going, but that's further down the line. But LinkedIn as a platform is only going to grow bigger and bigger and bigger. The goal is to reach 3 billion people globally. The entire workforce of the world will be on there. And with Microsoft funding this and being behind it, then it will happen.
And how do you think that the buyout from Microsoft has really affected LinkedIn so far?
They've supported them. They've not changed a great deal. They've kind of said, look, you're a successful company in your own right, so carry on doing what you're doing. And that's brilliant. You know, there's not many companies that go down that route. So they have supported them, but they've also put some other functionality in the background, which has enabled, you wouldn't believe this, but LinkedIn to produce things quicker than they ordinarily would have. So you've got that as well. You've got the transference of skills and employees across LinkedIn and Microsoft, which makes it a lot seamless as well. So you've got those kind of things that are happening in the background that you may not ordinarily be party to, but it's working anyway. It's helping improve the platform.
And you were saying about what does LinkedIn want? It wants to make money, and therefore the eyes on the posts is incredibly important to know what to add, what ads to run. So do you think people are like attention grabbing posts, not personal posts, because a lot of these sort of attention grabbing things are sometimes personal, but that sort of approach of attention grabbing, like clickbait sort of idea, is that part of LinkedIn? Is it a positive part of LinkedIn?
No clickbait is positive anywhere, I would say, but there is a danger that it does creep in to these things, and people will be either overly controversial, some people, or they will put something as a post which is highly emotive that will gain some kind of reaction. The downside to this in the long run is that it's potentially damaging to your longer term professional brand, I would say. If you go down, so when I work with a client and I say, what's your KPI? What's your measure of success? What is it you're after? And they go, well, on this particular post, I only got 1,000 views. And I go, okay, if views is the thing you're after, we can get you 50,000 views and it's not a problem. But then you're in danger of getting into the clickbait territory, because you're going to have to stimulate demand and what have you for this particular piece of content, which is then potentially damaging to your future self. You don't want to go down that route. You look at other KPIs which are more important and say, can I get a client off the back of it? Yeah. If you've only got 1,000 views and 5 comments, but 2 people converted into a client, that sounds like a win to me. So you've got to think about it in those kind of terms. But yeah, be very wary of going down clickbait just for the sake of a vanity metric like views.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've been having this conversation with a couple of coaches that I know, and we've been bouncing around the question of quality or quantity of connections. And actually, both of them have different views. One has the view that I want 20,000 connections because there's the greatest chance of me being able to touch someone that will be inspired or interested to, as you say, convert into a client. Where the other guy is talking about that actually, if you've got a community that's engaged, that is commenting, that is liking, is more interactive, that's the better way of doing it. And I sit on this argument that quality is better than quantity, because
right. So they're both right and they're both wrong.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, and you can pass this back to them. What you're after, what everyone should strive for, is a quantity of quality.
Okay.
So having that number is important, because the way the algorithm works, if you put a piece of content out, it'll only reach initially 5 to 15% of your audience. And if you've only got 1,000 people, then it's not going to touch many people. If you've got 20,000 people, it is. But you want them to be a quality audience that sits in your target audience, not just random person that you've hit the button to connect to. So it is about quantity, it is about quality, but it's the quantity of quality that matters.
Makes a lot of sense, because the thing that's slightly frustrated me with my LinkedIn profile, especially since I've resigned from my job, and coaching is a big factor, is the number of coaches that want to make connections with me. And I'm thinking, I don't really want you as a connection, because I'm not going to be able to sell. I'm not going to be able to generate leads from your interaction. It's a frustration for me. I do accept a lot of them, because I always think the content that they're providing might add some value at some stage further down the line. But it's a bit of a frustration for me, because as a coach, you don't want other coaches.
It's a tough one. You could go with the old adage of keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. I don't know, but you can learn a lot from people, and it's just about how do you stand out head and shoulders above the others. What makes you unique? What makes you the person that someone should come to for help and advice, or a program, or whatever that might be, as opposed to somebody else who, again, is only a click away. What is it that you can do and offer? And part of this is how you provide value. So you give first, you provide some kind of value up front, which then starts to generate trust. If you get through that trust, then you're halfway there anyway.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So do you think you're a better employee or a better entrepreneur?
Ooh. No, that's a really tough question. It's a 50-50. It really is. I would say in some of my early roles, I was probably better off as an entrepreneur. But so I have the same kind of values. You've got to think of your values. What is it you try to do? And my natural persona, the way that I approach everything is, what can I do for you? How can I help you? And that often makes me a valuable employee, but then that carries weight as well in an entrepreneurial set. Both have got merits. You never have the creative freedom that you have as an employee, so I had a good friend of mine, and we used to just come up with bonkers ideas all the time. Years ago, we're going back probably 10 years ago, I was talking about getting a smoothie in a pot, where you've just got all the ingredients, it's in a pot, and you just buy the pot, put it on a blender, done. And everyone said, that's ridiculous, it's insane. But actually, it was in Tesco's, so it wasn't insane. I just wish I'd have acted on it. And if it's just an idea and you don't act on it, it's just an idea. So one of the things that being an employee has taught me is take intelligent risks, and that's another value from LinkedIn. Yeah. If you take intelligent risks, the intelligent bit is the important bit. Don't just take a risk for the sake of it. Then actually you will constantly improve yourself as well. And I like that side of things.
That's really interesting. Thank you for that answer. So last question before the quickfire question. So you're actually a soccer coach. Sorry, I do have some US people listening. So,
yeah.
So how did you get involved? You said you still play, or you were playing quite recently. Yeah. So why did you go into sort of football coaching?
By accident rather than design. So my son, he's 8 now, a year ago, his coach just effectively said, no, I don't want this anymore, and left. And so it was a case of, right, come on then, mums, dads, who's up for this? Who's going to take this forward? Yeah. And it was like the Arsenal backline. They all stepped backwards at the same time. Leaving me standing there vulnerable. And I was like, look, all right, come on, let's give this a whirl. We'll do this. So with one of the other dads, we do this together. So the team is Chatham Town, which is a local team to me, of course. And they want to be professional in 10 years, so they're putting money behind it. It's a really nice club, really growing. And I run the under nines, so it's not easy. It's really not easy. You learn a lot in different ways, because managing the kids is only part of it. You've got to manage the parents. And they all think that their little son is the next Messi. And you kind of temper it slightly and go, well, I know he's the next Messi, but today he's playing at right back. So come on, everyone gets a turn here. But so I did my coaching badges, so FA level 1, which was great as well. That was a 5-week, 5 days over 5 weeks program with a guy called Simon Millington, who works up at Spurs. And you learn a lot about how to really talk to kids, because I'm not a school teacher. And when my initial approach was kind of barking orders at 8-year-olds, doesn't always work. Yeah. So you actually, little things like saying, right, when you start talking to them about how you want them to play, crouch down on the floor so they're eye level. And I thought, yep, okay, I'll take that on board. That's good. Yeah. And then he also said, and when they're playing in a game, also get a chair, sit on a chair and watch at their level. Don't stand above, because you're going to see the passes and the movement like they can't. Yeah. So, and I said, but then I've got to go and tell the parents who are going to be watching me on the sideline, sitting down with a cup of tea. So now I've got to...
A cup of tea, a fag in your mouth, going, I'm watching at their level. I'm watching at their level, guys.
So you see the issues that can crop up here. But look, they're a really good group of lads. They've actually been together for 3 years, and they're only 8 years old now.
Okay.
So
are you gonna be under 9s next year when your son goes to under 9s, or are you gonna stay at under 8s?
No, well, as 8-year-olds, they're under 9s now.
Oh, okay. But I mean, the next year, do you get promoted to the year older? So if your son gets into the first 11, you'll be first team coach.
I'll take over. It's the longer term plan. So yeah. But he's great. So when it's good, it's good, and when it's not so good, it's not so good. But we played 6 games before the new lockdown. Won 5, drew 1, scored 48, let in 1. I mean, crazy scores, really. 13-1 and 10-0 and stuff like that. And I've got everything on a spreadsheet, because I measure everything. So I know who's been captain. I know who started as sub. I know who scored when. Everyone gets the same minutes, rotation and everything else. But... it's not easy, but the hardest thing is actually dealing with my own son, because as an 8-year-old, he views me as dad, not as a coach. So, of course, he wants to take liberties. I can't have that.
All right, thank you for that. We're coming to the end of the interview, and I ask all of my guests the 6 same questions. It's a quick fire round. If there's an interesting story, then by all means tell me, but we'll try and do these ones a little bit quicker. What's the best decision that you made?
Best decision I made was to go and see LinkedIn initially, because they invited me for the job. I didn't look for it. And I did initially say I wasn't interested. I was happy in my current role. And they said, just come in for a half-hour chat. So that... best decision.
Yeah, life-changing. What's the best piece of advice you've been given?
The one that always sticks in my mind, this is not the best piece of advice, but the one that always pops to mind. Don't sweat the petty things, and don't pet the sweaty things. But actually, the best piece of advice ever was it's take intelligent risks, always.
That. Who's helped you most in your career?
Who's helped me most?
Yeah. Shout out to 1 or 2 people.
Oh, blimey. Ooh, this is a really bizarre way, because there's an old manager that I had that I ended up falling out with over money that they didn't want to honour a contract. And I'm not going to mention his name, actually, because I've said that. But that particular person had a very big influence on my entire view of a career. So I can't actually mention his name because I've just said that first bit, but it wasn't anyone at LinkedIn. It was outside of that. Very big influence in a good way.
Oh, in a good way, not in a negative way.
No.
Oh, okay.
I learned a lot about business, about how to look at everything from marketing to HR to recruitment, finance, everything around business, dealing with clients, all sorts of things, how you navigate a career.
Yeah.
He had quite a big influence, actually.
Okay. Any regrets?
Any regrets? I tend to just say no, because I wouldn't be here now.
Yeah.
If I really regretted something, I couldn't be doing this with you.
Yeah, fair enough. What are you most proud of?
Oh, the football team.
In 10 years, you'll be first team coach.
Exactly. No, but I'm business stuff aside, I'm really proud of the kids. The way they have dealt with everything that's going on through this period, COVID. And they're 8 and 10. My daughter's just passed her 11 plus, which is brilliant. She smashed it. She worked really hard for it. My son has really knuckled down at school. Knuckled down. He's an 8-year-old, but he's embraced his schooling, whereas previously I'm not interested. That I'm very proud of both of them.
Awesome. What does legacy mean to you?
Legacy to me is it's actually how people feel about me. Have I left something of value for people that I've met, people that I've interacted with? Is there something of value that actually they'll talk positively?
Yeah, awesome. And where can people find you?
So they can find me on LinkedIn as a starting point. So my LinkedIn address is www.linkedin.com/in/Dan Kent Smith, all one word, that is. So they can find me there. They can, and actually I'll just put a QR code on there. So if you go on there, you can.
I saw today. So what do you do if you take a picture of that?
Scan it.
Yeah.
You'll phone me.
Oh, interesting. I wondered what it was for.
So you can phone me off of that. So I haven't put my phone number on my my contact info, because people are scraping that data and I get spam. But if someone's interested, take the time to scan it. You can phone me direct.
Awesome. Is there anything else before we close? Is there anything else you'd like to add?
What would I like to add? So what I'd like to add is, for everyone, the importance of getting LinkedIn right. It's so important. And you can get advice there's lots of people out there who can work with you, or you can do it yourself. You can do your research, but take the time to get it right. You don't go hunting for food when you're starving. So even if life is good right now, still get it right, because tomorrow it might not be. Good.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan. Thank you so much for your time. It's been really interesting talking through your career, and good luck with the business.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot.